Incels are becoming more and more prevalent in our societies, promoting misogynistic, anti-feminist, violent rhetoric against the female population. But what are they exactly? An incel, which is short for involuntarily celibate, is a member of an online subculture of people who define themselves as unable to get a romantic or sexual partner despite desiring one. Incels are mostly male, heterosexual, and more times than not white. Estimates of the overall size of the subculture vary greatly, ranging from thousands to hundreds of thousands of individuals. Discussions in incel forums are often characterized by resentment and hatred, misogyny, self-pity, self-loathing, racism, a sense of entitlement to sex, and the endorsement of violence against women in particular and people who are also sexually active. They unite under the same anger and resentment they feel towards women for being rejected, where they don't feel alone, where they can feel accepted and fuel the misogynistic ideology that is rampant in this online subculture. The first website to use the term incel was founded during the 1990s. The website was founded by a university student living in Toronto known only by her first name, Alana. She created the website to discuss her sexual inactivity. She titled it Alana's Involuntary Celibacy Project. During 1997, she started a mailing list on the topic that used the abbreviation INVCEL, later shortened to incel, which was for anybody of any gender who was lonely, had never had sex, or hadn't had a relationship in a very long time. Now, incels use various different websites such as loveshy.com and incel support. In the early 2000s, incel communities became more extremist when they adopted behaviours common on forums like 4chan and Reddit, where extremist posts were encouraged as a way to achieve visibility. Sites like 4chan aren't overly moderated, so it's a free-for-all for hate speech and violent rhetoric. Many people believe that the incel beliefs developed from a male supremacist culture that consistently fails to mitigate violence against women and girls and teaches them that they are entitled to sex and romantic fulfillment and that women are only valued for their instrumentality to these ends. Incel men have also actively advocated for the legislation of violent actions to punish and control women, such as rapes and beatings, suggesting that the legalized violence against women partners are justified as a response to disobedience, not providing sex, or another way they like to disgustingly put it is failing to fulfill their feminine role. One of the core beliefs that incels have is this sexual entitlement is a dehumanizing view of women as objects to serve them, that their instrumentality is identified based on purity of objectification, and these girls are objectified and reduced to things, to possessions to be owned, and that it reduces women to their appearance, body, or individual body parts, which leads to perception of women as interchangeable with others possessing the same physical characteristics. The idea that all women are money-grabbing, promiscuous, and manipulative comes across strongly on incel threads.
Women are just evil, you know what I'm saying? Women are evil, women are cruel, women are mean.
Where women are, especially attractive women in particular, are referred to as stacies. Now, stacies are objects of both desire and ridicule in the incel world. Incels believe that stacies will always choose their so-called chads over them. Now, a chad is sort of a caricature of a sexually successful man, and comparisons of chads aren't just about the personality or the confidence. Many also believe that they are genetically inferior to chads because chad is often depicted as a successful guy with swaths of blonde hair and pulsating muscles, and he has a sports car and a chiseled jawline that a lot of incels feel they cannot achieve. And this kind of creates a us versus them mentality where they feel sex, love and happiness are just out of reach for them. They feel it's not their fault, and they blame women for not being attracted to them instead of reflecting on their issues, their own looks and their own ways of playing a role in improving their attractiveness to women. Even more disgustingly, some incel men attempt to justify paedophilia by stating that underage girls, particularly preteen girls, are more likely to be pure by not yet having sex, and that sexual contact are easier to influence and control when they come from preteen girls. They also claim that being with a pure girl is the only way to truly ascend from being an incel, and that women who have had previous sexual relationships are tainted. Now, another dangerous ideology that a lot of these incels have is the blackpill ideology, which is a viewpoint that adheres to the belief that looks are genetically determined and that women only choose their sexual partners based off looks and physical features. So if you are born as someone that is not conventionally attractive in society, then they believe that it's predetermined that you will be an incel. So a lot of incels attempt to to prove this by misreading studies and doing their own experiments to prove that women only care about a man's physical looks. And many of them believe that it cannot be solved because it's a problem with society and not the individual, that society is to blame for the fact that women apparently are only attracted to men's physicality and physicality alone. Obviously, the problem with this kind of ideology is it's very nihilistic, and the other issue on top of this black pill ideology is that self-help or any sort of positivity is frowned upon by the incel community. Anyone who successfully interacts with a woman is instantly branded as a fake cel, which means a fake incel, because these echo chambers are designed to blame society, to blame everyone else but themselves. And one of the most worrying issues that is created through this mentality is a rise in incel extremism. Unfortunately, these hateful beliefs spread in these echo chambers into real life violence. The first ever act of violence connected to the incel community was by a young 22-year-old by the name of Elliot Rodger, who since has become a saint to the incel community. It all started in May 2014 when the 22-year-old perpetrated his attack when he shot and killed 6 people. His initial plan was to kill women at sorority in the University of California Santa Barbara campus, but could not gain access, so instead he drove around the beachside community targeting people at random. He would then go on to crash his car and shoot himself in the head before police could get to him. In the end, it was also found out that he had also killed 3 of his roommates. The police also found various YouTube videos he had posted where he blamed women and the world for his failure to get women.
The girls are not sexually attracted to me. There's a major problem with that. A major problem. That's a problem that I intend to rectify.
He wrote a manifesto before the attacks and researched which sorority had the most beautiful girls to represent. The manifesto states the desire to inspire terror in women, and I quote, "I cannot kill every single female on earth, but I can deliver a devastating blow that will shake all of them to the core of their wicked hearts." Now, unfortunately for him, he was unable to gain access to these targeted women. Unfortunately for the pedestrians in the area, they had been subjects to his attack. He believed that women were manipulators and stuck-up sluts, and they had no reason to reject him. In the 141-page manifesto, which is deranged and borderline insane to read, he describes his whole world up until his death. In the epilogue, at the end of this ranting, he states, and I quote, "The ultimate evil behind sexuality is the human female. They are the main instigators of sex. They control which men get it and which men don't. Women are flawed creatures, and my mistreatment at their hands has made me realize this sad truth. There is something very twisted and wrong with the way their brains are wired. They think like beasts, and in truth, they are beasts." Now, Elliot was completely incapable of seeing his own flaws, and instead he grew this hatred and misogynistic ideology from the incel community that resulted in violence and death towards these innocent people. He actually flipped a kind of switch in the incel community that went from angry online community to real life threat in our society, especially towards women. Now, another incident occurred in Toronto in 2018 when a young driver by the name of Alec Minasian targeted pedestrians, killing 11 and injuring 15 when he drove a van through a street by the name of Yonge Street through the North York City Centre Business District in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. This incident was the biggest vehicle ramming attack in Canadian history and has since been characterised as a misogynistic terrorism because it was motivated by the revenge for perceived sexual and social rejection by women. He also stated at his arrest that he was an incel, and in prior social media postings had described the attack as a continuation of the incel rebellion started by the late Elliot Rodger. And there are only 2 to mention, and there has been more attacks, and fear has grown among women, especially in America, that these attacks will continue. Now, I think it's also important to note that not all incel community members agree with the likes of Elliot Rodger and think it's wrong to commit these kinds of horrific attacks on women.
Crossed a line into threatening what seems like real violence. They'll be banned from the website. I know on numerous occasions there would be communication with the FBI to make sure that nothing actually crosses into reality, that it just stays a post on an image board or on a website.
There are some in the community who take less extreme tactics. One incel by the name of the Catfish Man, who meets up with girls from Tinder, records them, humiliates them with verbal harassment and intimidation as an act of revenge for the incel community. So how do we solve this issue? Well, obviously it's a very extremely nuanced, complex issue that it's hard to find a simple, straightforward answer for. The best I could come up with possibly is maybe have better mental health facilities for people who feel alone and rejected. Although you could also argue that the idea of misogyny isn't really a mental health issue. The ideology itself is hard to remove. Now, we do have like subreddits, like the incel subreddit on Reddit that has been banned because of promoted violence. So some would suggest that maybe banning more of these forums, trying to police them better, is a way to help reduce it. Although I think it's fair to say that banning hate speech and banning any sort of free speech can be more of a disadvantage than an advantage, because it just makes these communities grow. The only kind of long-term solution that I could find in my research is basically that they need to do more funding for research in the area. And I think one of the most needed resources for combating misogynistic violence should be dedicated to funding in that area, where there's more detailed policy proposals, there's educational criteria, there's program designs, and other initiatives possibly that could come from that, where different organizations and researchers could collab from different areas of expertise to kind of come up with a long-term robust strategy to kind of challenge the misogynistic ideologies and hopefully change people's perspective. And because the violence seems to be growing recently and it's becoming a higher and higher concern, so what do you guys think is the best way to deal with these issues? Do you have any sympathy for incels? Do you think that they are deserving of the hate they receive? Or do you think there is some justification for how they're feeling? Let me know in the comments below. Like, at the end of the day, we all want sex, we all want to be loved, we all want to feel attractive, we all want that external validation. But I think a lot of people need to learn how to deal with rejection and how to look at internally at the own issues that they have and how they can improve themselves to become more attractive to women, because the ideology that women are only attracted to you based off your physical looks isn't true. It's been proven time and time again. Yes, it's an important element. Rejection is a part of life, and that's how you grow and you learn and you change. So if you're going to come up with boring, lazy, misogynistic viewpoints because you feel that the world is against you, you need to get your head out of your ass and you need to really think about why you're being rejected, why you're not appealing, and maybe there's something you should do about that instead of blaming the world for your problems, because it's lazy, it doesn't require any effort, and it means that you can have this nihilistic view that you can't solve. It's not healthy, and I think people need to learn from failure and need to be humble. And I think the idea that the world isn't fair is true, but you need to look at it in a less misogynistic way because it's not healthy. That's my rant about it anyway. That's how I feel. Let me know in the comments below what you thought. Do you agree with what I'm saying? Do you disagree? If there's a perspective I haven't thought about, please share in the comments below. I love hearing from you guys and kind of hearing from different perspectives and things that I hadn't thought about, because it's always interesting when you hear responses from people. So as always, thanks so much for watching, thanks for subscribing, thanks for sharing and liking the videos. It's always very much appreciated. And if you're a new subscriber, thank you so much for subscribing. I hope you're enjoying the content, and I hope you're all learning something from my content, because that's always the goal, that people learn something that they hadn't learned before. So thanks so much guys for watching. As always, please feel free to like, share and subscribe. It really means a lot to me. I enjoy making these videos and I'm glad people are enjoying watching them. And as always, I will see you in the next video. Peace out.